My layoff in January 2026 was technically temporary. There was a recall option built into it, no date attached to that recall, just a clause sitting there theoretically, meaning I could be called back someday, maybe later, who knows. I want to tell you about the 2 weeks after that and the decision I made that ended up getting me two job offers, not through applications but through something I built and put out publicly while I was technically still in limbo. This is not a story about posting bravely on day one. It actually took me a couple of weeks to even start talking about the whole story. This is a story about what I did instead of waiting around for a recall date that was never coming. Here is the thing about temporary layoff with no recall date. It actually sits in a strange situation, like an in between space. You are not quite let go, but you are also not employed in a way that pays you or gives you work to do. And for the first few weeks or first week or two, some part of you actually holds on to that ambiguity like it means something. And it took me about 2 weeks to fully understand what was actually happening. The recall option was just a formality and there was no active plan to bring me back, and the company had already closed the book on me. They just hadn't said it in those exact words out loud. So that realization is when something really shifted, not in a panic way but into a clarity that if I was waiting on the door that was never going to be open, the only useful thing left to do was to build my own. Around the 2 week mark, I started doing two things at once. I was applying, obviously, tailoring resumes, going through the usual process of looking into the job online. But I also made a decision that I think mattered more in the long run. I decided that instead of only sending applications into a black hole, I was going to build something real and put it where people could actually see it. The logic was simple. A resume tells someone what you say you can do. A live public project shows them what you can do. And in the job market where everyone has the same certification, similar bullet points showing percentages of the achievements. So building in public did not basically mean a polished announcement with a uh, bow on it. It meant posting the messy middle. I shared what I was doing. I also shared what I was when I was stuck on something. I shared simple wins, getting a query to finally run the right result, or getting a UI element to actually render properly. I shared every screenshot of work in progress, not just a finished product. And I also started commenting more honestly about the layoff itself about around the same time, not on a single big dramatic post, just on an ongoing thread of honesty woven into what I was building. So people could basically see both things happening together, and that is, here is someone navigating their hard career moment, and here is what they are actually capable of building while doing it. So that combination is what I think made it land differently than it on its own would have. So the vulnerability made people more care, and the actual technical work made them trust the skill behind it. The project that ended up mattering most was something that I call the AI Analytics Assistant. The core idea was simple, a natural language tool to convert your normal text queries to a SQL queries. You just type a question in your plain English and it generates and run the right SQL query against the data and then gives you the answer back in a form of a PDF file or a chart, etc. So I built it in end to end, connecting to a sample data set, deployed and actually live, not just sitting in a private repo somewhere. I documented why I built it also, not just what it did, but the actual reasoning behind the technical choices. It was something I designed myself based on a real problem I have been repeatedly seeing in BI work. Example, business users wanting answers from data without needing to learn SQL first or without needing to ask the analyst to do an ad hoc analysis. So I built the version 2.0, meaning I had already iterated it on once and improved it with itself, signaling something about how I work. But here is what actually happened in two separate interview processes, completely unrelated to each other. The interviewer had clearly looked at my profile portfolio beforehand. So both of them asked me the same question of not walk me through the resume, but tell me about the purpose behind this AI project. So that question is different from anything a resume bullet point can prompt. So they weren't asking what the project did, they were basically asking me why I built it, what was the need for that project, and what problem did I see to build this project. And in addition to that, they also wanted to hear my thought process about being a user, being a product manager, being a front end developer, etc. So that is a conversation about judgment and product thinking, not just a technical execution. And it is a conversation you can only have if someone has actually engaged in your work before you walk into that room. So both of these interviews led me to a contract offers, not because the project itself get me hired directly, but because it changed the entire texture of the interview. I was not just being evaluated cold, I was being asked to expand on something I've already proven I could do. And that was very important for me as well, because I felt that the whole interview experience felt more like a conversation. Here is a broader lesson I took from this. A line on a resume that says build analytics tool using Python and SQL is just a claim, and anyone can write that sentence given that there are a lot of free online courses, free stuffs available on internet. But a live public project that someone can actually click on, read about it, try it hands on and ask you question on, that's a great evidence. In a market where everyone has similar certification and a similar resume language, evidence is what actually differentiates you, and it does the work of convincing someone before you have even said a word in this interview. And here is the part that surprised me most. The project did not need to be massive or perfect. It just needed to be real, live, and have a clear answer to the question, why did you build this? That is generally a low bar to clear, and most people don't clear it simply because they never finish or never published it. So, if you are in some version of what I was, in a layoff with no clear ending, an ambitious status, waiting on a recall, or a decision that may never come, here is what I want to tell you. Stop waiting for a permission to move forward. The recall date that never gets set is not a pause button on your career. Treat it as one. Pick one project you can actually finish and publish, not 10. You will never complete that many projects when you are also job searching. It does not need to be a groundbreaking project as well. It just needs to be a real live something that you can explain the reasoning behind in a plain language, and build in public while you do it, not like performing that you have the confidence, but just documenting the actual process, stuck parts included as well. So that combination of honesty and visible competence is what changed the shape of my own job search, and I believe it can do the same as yours. So, if you are currently job searching or sitting in some version of career limbo right now, I hope this gave you one concrete thing to do actually do this week. Subscribe if you want more of this real career stories along the BI and data content I usually post. I'm here every Wednesday. Tell me in the comments, do you have a portfolio project right now, finished or in progress? I would like to know what you're building as well. See you on Wednesday.